Good afternoon, members of the Committee for Agriculture, Fisheries, and Animal Husbandry, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, and the members of the media. Welcome to this committee number 4 of the Committee for Agriculture, Fisheries, and Animal Husbandry of today, Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. I would like to give a special welcome to Mr. Luis Engel, who is present here today. We have established a quorum of 3 factions. Please stand for a moment of silence. I have received notice of absence from the following committee members: MP Roseberg, MP Waver, MP Utley. I have received notice of lateness from the following member: MP Duran. Are there any other notifications? I don't see any. The agenda point for this committee meeting is presentation on the Soualiga Feed Us floating farms concept, IS-251/2024-2025, dated November 6, 2024. We're over to the agenda point. In keeping with the theme of this parliamentary year, as presented during the opening of the parliamentary year 2024-2025, uncovering and supporting agriculture and sustainable agriculture practices, Parliament aims to highlight sustainability in our community with a specific focus on sustainable practices and methods in the local agricultural sector. Today, this committee has invited Mr. Luis Engels in response to his request for a meeting with Parliament to give a presentation about the floating farms concept. Parliament received a letter containing his request on December 6, 2024. This letter and related documents are available on Parliament Teams under IS/799/2024-2025 and IS/251/2024-2025. Hence today, this meeting. I would now like to give the floor to Mr. Engel for his opening remarks and presentation. Mr. Engel, you have the floor.
President, members of Parliament, listening audience, thank you for your attention, and let's get right to it. Today, I'm, as it was mentioned by the President of Parliament, presenting a concept on farming on water, because we have a situation in St. Martin where we don't have land. But it is not impossible to farm because we have a salt pond. As you can see, it starts. Soualiga Feed Us Floating Farms is the name that I came up with because Soualiga is what the name of the island was. The plan is to repurpose the salt pond. The plan is to repurpose the salt pond. I'll continue as it will come back online. We have an opportunity here to do a local agribusiness project. It is innovative and it is sustainable and it is local economic development. It's local production and it's produced by local human resource.
Well, Mr. Engel, 1 second. Let's get IT to get your presentation up so we could follow. Let's adjourn for 2 minutes so that we could get IT to, here we go.
Yeah. So, okay, as I mentioned earlier, it's local agribusiness project. It's innovative. It is, so it's orange economy. It's sustainable. And it is economic development for the island. This is where we can start looking towards a financial independence. As small as it may be, it's just like the moon, the small step on the moon. It is local production, and it's done by local human resource. When food importation becomes risky, we know we had that situation with 2020 that it was food sources were not reliable and they became very expensive. We need to be thinking on how to become at least partially self-sustainable. We have a viable option because we have the salt pond, as you can see to the right of the picture. And then I say, when land becomes scarce, farm on water. It's not inventing of a wheel. It's been done throughout the world, on salt water, on sweet water, but farming on water, whether you farm on the water directly, on top of it, or using the water, no? So we have the infrastructure, and later down in this presentation, you will see that we also have the financing for this project. The importation of goods is capital flight. This is no news. We all know this. Every time you buy something, you import it, our money goes off. Local production, on the other hand, translates into our country's GDP growth because the money is made here and it stays here. Outsourced farming, the pros and cons thereof. The pro thereof is that we have large terrain to farm on. Pretty much that's the only one that I could have come up with. The cons, on the other hand, one, production. It's potential production loss due to bad weather. Potential production theft. It might be by others that come in and thief. It might be by the same workers on the plantation, but theft possibility is there. Quality control. You don't have that guarantee. In particular, if you're exporting, you're going to see at the end of it, quality control is it's a great issue. Point two, rental contract. You have capital flight, and you have contract conditions. The people might have very stringent conditions with the contract that might put St. Martin in a precarious situation. And then human resource, also a capital flight, loss of work opportunities for our local people. And then we have the logistics of shipping. If it's shipped via Miami, stringent importation through port, shipping regulations and cost are added and passed on to the consumer. Costs like fruit maturity are checked, preservation, packaging, and handling requirements. All these are costs that are passed on besides the cost of handling by the how do you say, the authority there. The vision for this project is to provide St. Martin with a viable and sustainable source of fresh produce, poultry, and meat utilizing cages and soil-based floors. The mission, to provide a viable source of year-round selection of high-quality agriculture products at reasonable prices, thus achieving a small yet significant level of self-reliance, self-sustainability, and community empowerment. The values. We value in this project the quality of our products, the consistency of it, the affordability of it, which I will elaborate further on, self-sustainability rather than dependence, and community empowerment. If we can offer the top four, we empower our community. Our core value is to achieve self-sustainability and self-reliance, starting with viable agriculture development. I have here a list of products that we can farm. They are not necessarily the products that we are going to farm. We have to always consider the size of farming space that we have. And then I divided them into products of sustenance, products of accompaniments, and meat and egg. We can, for example, I say let's do farming of crops, but let's consider very much products of sustenance. For example, if I farm and feed tomato to the people, I give them a lot of vitamins and calories in their body, but it will not fill their stomach. On the other hand, if I feed you aubergine, an eggplant, it will sustain you for a while. And that is what I mean by products of sustenance. And then you get eggplant, mushroom, okra, beans, cabbage as an example of. There are others, but why mention so many? We see what would work best for us. And then complements, you have the pepper variety, lettuce, tomatoes, cucumber, celery, and so on. Meat. Meat for me is very important. I want to discuss that. We have, as you see, chicken for meat, chicken for egg, and then rabbit. I will go back on elaborating on the chicken for meat, for egg, and rabbit. But for now, I will give you an example of, it's an Excel drawing of what the cages would look like. If I may, in the bottom, you see the three colors, gray, blue, and white. The gray represents the sand in the bottom of the water of the salt pond. And then on top of it is the air between the water and the bottom frame. And then you have different cages that you can make. You have, I'm here specifying broilers as chicken and not eggs. And I will elaborate on the reason further below. But you have cages where you can, when they become small, up to 2 weeks, and then they grow up to 4 weeks, and then you pass them on so they can, after 6 weeks, they are ready for market. Vis-a-vis the chicken for eggs. Chicken for eggs, it takes up to 5 to 6 months for them to be market ready, so for them to lay their first eggs. And if I go down, you have chicken have a lot of, how do you say, maintenance and requirements in order to have them ready before they even start laying an egg. While if it's poultry, so chicken for meat, it's only 6 weeks from birth to ready for market. That means less maintenance, less feed, and also less, how do you say, products to keep them healthy. I also put an example of rabbit meat as a consideration. Why is this? Rabbit meat is high in protein, it's low in cholesterol, and it's healthier than beef, pork, or goat. It is not something that we know in our culture. We never grew up with, maybe I come from Curaçao and we go hunting in the bushes and we catch rabbits, but St. Martin does not have that. But it is a very healthy meat, and if it's introduced to the market, basically because of its price, which is cheaper than chicken, might stand a good chance of being accepted. Everything is on a trial basis. In that sense, you would start on a smaller scale with the rabbit and on a larger scale with the chicken. But my option would be for chicken as broilers and not chicken as layers because of logistics. Huh? This would be then an example. What I forgot to mention is you only see the straight lines, but when we anchor against hurricanes, you're going to see on the side of it also bars going down, because that will help anchor the structure. Optional farming is that means that you can go higher than just one level. You can go 2 or 3 levels high, depending on what you want to farm. You can do soil-based, where you require sun to come in, and then you're limited to your height, or you can do hydroponics, where you can go a couple of, how do you say, stories, up to 3 stories high, and then farm. And if you do hydroponics, well, then you have a lot of volume of product that you can produce. One benefit of having these cages anchored in the salt pond is that no iguanas and no monkeys can get to them, because they're in the middle of a body of water. The monkeys and iguanas have to cross that first, and then they have steel on which they have to climb, which makes it rather impossible for them to come into this encaged farm facility. If I may, I think I skipped. No. Okay. Okay. The farm does not rely solely on GB as a provider of utilities. It mainly is going to rely on a desalination plant, a small but strong enough desalination plant that would have a pipe run through the canal, Rolandes Canal, I think it's called, into the sea. Pumps out seawater, transform it into usable water for planting and for feeding the animals. We will also use solar power to engage in solar energy. These are examples of how farms look like that use solar provided energy over them. And then this is an example of a desalination plant. It provides efficiency, it reduces cost, and it's connected to the Rolandes Canal for pumping of water. Seawater is free, so it reduces cost of production. Electricity also through solar reduces cost of production. in order to make that water a better quality of water that we have in the lagoon, we would like to introduce crustaceans, such as crabs and clams. We have them in cages. The purpose of these are not necessarily for consumption because of the level of pollution of the lagoon, of the salt pond, but it will drastically change the hygiene or the level of quality of water once they are introduced. They're very easy to get, very cheap to get, very easy to install. And after a while, what you do is you just take them out and you put new ones in it. That might be twice a year. And after a couple of years, you will, 2-3 years to the most, you will see a difference in the quality of the water of the salt pond. How will this project function? This is proposed as a public-private initiative. So government would supply the facilities, government will set it up, and according to the requirement of the specific farmer. If I want to farm hydroponics, sand, if I want an animal, it will be set up for me that way, and then the cost will be implemented accordingly, the rental cost. So basically farmers just pay their rent, get a key, and they walk in because they get all the equipment that they need. They specify exactly what they need, and all the equipment will be, so it's ready walk-in for them. By having the products available on the island, government can now implement or limit importation of certain products that are produced. Everybody will benefit from it because farmers now have a possibility of farming and selling to the supermarkets and the grocery stores, and they in turn then will sell to the customers. So you cannot go to the farm and buy retail from the farm, or else it will cut out the supermarkets. And the purpose is to have the supermarkets not import, so we have capital flight, rather buy from us and keep our money in-house. And the consumers then hopefully benefit of affordable prices. It's a win-win agriculture business approach for all the stakeholders. The farmers benefit from new and viable, fully equipped farming location, up to 3 layers of farm production capacity per product, solution to expensive utility costs. This is the complaint whenever the farmers have a presentation. They have always complaints of farming location and utility cost. All 3 are provided in this project. We're going to use the existing farmlands, so the farmers are going to use their existing farmlands to do monoculture farming production. So if we have different farmers all decide to take their available land because now they're using government to do their farming and their land becomes available. As an example, let's say everybody does plantain, right? So we're going to have a mass production of plantain that we can now limit or maybe even cut off importation of plantain because of monoculture farming. I'm not going to say plantain, I'm going to leave it up to the farmers, they decide which best, but the suggestion would be for monoculture farming because then you have mass production. Because really, if you see what is happening with farming in St. Martin now, it's all on small scale. It will never be beneficial. The only way it will be beneficial if you go in large-scale farming, and the only way you do large-scale farming is if you take the little bit of land that you have, in our case, and make use of it for one production rather than various production. It makes cost of production cheaper. It makes the end price cheaper. So they have double benefits. They can now farm on the location of the salt plant and use their own land for farming. This is a suggestion. They decide at the end of the day what they want to do with their land, but it's an additional option they have now. Provisions and benefits. Repurposing of the underdeveloped valuable body of water. The sustainable agribusiness development. It is a viable economic development and it's a creation of local business and job opportunities. Benefits, new and expanded farming facilities opportunity, new government revenues, rental income used for establishing and maintaining of the agricultural department. that the income can be used for that. I'm not saying that the income will be used for that, but the income that rental income that government now generates can be directed toward the agriculture department, so they now have funding for whatever requirements the department has. The island becomes self-reliant and self-sufficient, albeit in one or two products. We have that pride that we do not have to import these products anymore. We empower, by this fact, we empower our community. The salt pond was primarily source of our economic development for St. Martin. With the collective efforts of all stakeholders, the salt pond can be repurposed to once again be a thriving economy driver for St. Martin. The key partners for this project are the Minister of Tiat. The minister will issue the national decree to establish a government-owned company. Minister of Finance, the national decree co-signer, and also funding recipient. I have the funding here. Minister of Romi will then provide the water rights and the building permits. Government and High Council with advice and counsel on it. Council of Ministers will approve the national decree. Same with the Parliament. And then the Gouverneur will sign off on the decree. Project outline plan. We present the business plan, present the business case to government of St. Martin project developer, approve the business plan, the government and advisors, project commencement approximately 21 months after the project presentation date, if it goes according to plan. The project completion approximately 36 months after the project commencement date. A more realistic time frame will be established, of course, after consultation with the work team. So first, government has to decide, hey, we want this, and then once government decides we want this, it approximately takes this period to have it established. Funding options. This is a very important part of this project. If you don't have funding, you don't have a project. First off, I put the National Recovery Program because there is funding there that we can tap into. There is also the International Fund for Agriculture Development, the IFAD, for loans and grants. Of course, we will ask for grants primarily. But the Netherlands of late offered or made available 24 million euros for agriculture on the 6 islands. Curaçao, Aruba, and Bonaire, because of their land mass and capability of delving into farming, stand a good chance to take a good bit of this cake. If St. Martin decides to delve into this project of agriculture, and if we also decide to do the one for the fishery, then we can stand up and say, Holland, hey, we don't have the land mass, but we can create the opportunities, so we want a big part of this. And then I can easily see how Curaçao, Aruba, St. Martin will get the same amount as Curaçao, Aruba, and Bonaire. And then Saba and St. Eustatius will also then get part of it. Here's the thing. We have Saba and St. Eustatius right next to us. If they now also have part of this money to develop their agriculture projects over there, then it's cheaper, easier, and a shorter distance to ship whatever they farm over there to St. Martin, and vice versa, what we have over there. So it's a project where we work together. We complement each other because one does one farming, the other one does the other crop farming, or so, as an example. Yeah, sorry, Ron. Can I stop a second fighting?
Let's see.
I have it plugged in, so. There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I would think that option 3 would be a very viable option because it gives us sufficient funding for us to develop agriculture for St. Martin. And if we work in collaboration with Saba and St. Eustatius, we can even have bigger farming potentials and less dependency on importation of farm products. between us, rather than bringing it from a step further, which is a step costlier. The project concept acquisition proposal. This is what I propose for government to acquire the project concept. The acquisition, the concept is gifted to government of St. Maarten by my person. I feel that it is something that the whole island will benefit from as a nation, and because of that, an individual cannot benefit from it. I want government to be the owner of it, and if government is the owner, how can I charge government for that project? At least that's my philosophy. The condition, obviously, it has that tied to it. The government hires me to prepare the business plan. I will be doing that in conjunction with other individuals, two in particular, as the project supervisor. So also as the project supervisor. The project developer's general duties: draft the plan and the outcomes for success, present project outlines to stakeholders, acquire the required work residency permit if we need to bring in anybody to help establish any aspect of the farm, address and resolve issues that may arise during the project development process, assurance that the work ethics and quality production standards adhere, monitoring the progress of the project in partnership with the sponsor, which will be the government. Soualiga floating farms, it's a concept today. It is viable, it is sustainable farming. It's agroeconomic development, it's partial self-reliance, and it is community empowerment. It is only impossible until it's done. I thank you for your time. This is the end of the presentation, and I'm open now for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Engel, for that presentation. I now look to the members of Parliament. Which member of Parliament can I give the floor? I see MP Westcott. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to all, including to Mr. Engel. And with my thanks for his presentation, has some type of SWOT analysis been conducted for this potential project? And I say so to ask, what are some of the foreseeable challenges? Because it is huge, if I just look at it and listen to you. So I'm sure in your mind you must have come up, or maybe also on paper, with some of the potential setbacks, challenges, and or pitfalls with respect to the project.
Well, I have the business case in which I present the case and all the arguments that will see the pros and cons of establishing of the farm. And then I also have the business model that will present how the business will be established. And then these two will then be analyzed.
Excuse me, Mr. Engels. Yeah. Apologies. I had to give you the floor so you could respond back to MP Westcott. My apologies. Mr. Engel, you could...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My apologies for not...
No, my apologies.
The protocol is lacking. Thank you. Yes, MP Westcott Williams. Yeah, based on those two, which I also submitted to Parliament, and there then I also need to work, if I may, a quick second.
When,
yeah, this is the business case, and then you can see the titles. What is Soualiga? That is gives you an, information on what Soualiga Farm entails, how it will be set up, where the concept came about, the interdependencies, the essential factors to consider, the company profile, the project purpose, stakeholders established, the background information, the business objective, benefits and, benefits, limitations and solutions, option and selection, scope and impact of the interdependencies, the project assessment report, project feasibility report, key partners, outline plan, market assessment that will have to be done by a market analyst, which will be part of setting up of the business plan, the risk assessment, project approach, finance of the project, sensitivity analysis, funding, project governance, reporting as well as organization, project organization, how does this project connect to organizational goals and objective, which metrics will be used to measure the success of this project, who is working on the project, when is it expected to be completed, and the action plan. That is all under the business case. And then we have the business model. Again, the vision, key partners, the key activities that will take place, structure, design, utility supply, key resources, values proposition, customer segment, channels are there of how you're gonna announce yourself, positioning, strategy, pyramids, marketing, various aspects of that, who the target markets are, critical issues, the controls, implementation, action plan, contingency planning, company structure, the model of the business, the acquisition of such, cost structure, financial objectives, financials, plans, conclusion, and footnote. All are part of preparing for the what can go wrong and what can go good. I don't know if this answers the question.
MP Wasco?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I will review the document itself, which I haven't done yet, and see if basically it gives the gist of what I'm asking, because I would want to imagine, given that and the many aspects of it, that you would want to have like a third party, a neutral third party, throw a look at it in terms of its feasibility, realiteitsgehalte, you know, so those kind of things, and what could potentially be like a bottleneck that if you don't get across that, then the project can't proceed, you know. So I don't know if you have done that, and maybe that's the result of your business.
If I may, through. Yeah.
Mr. Engel, you may respond to.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, this would be actually the second part of it, because it's a costly investment. It's a research that would cost money. Mm-hmm. Pretty much the information that I have is reliable information, because it's based on whether you go on the websites and get that information, whether you go on other projects that established it likewise. But for you to delve deeper in it, it's going to cost money, and for that, as it is not a private initiative, but rather an initiative that is proposed for government to follow. Where we are at now is to see if government likes the concept, and if government likes the concept, then government says, well, I would like to delve further in it, and then I will come to an agreement with you to delve further in it, and then I would come with a proposal for that to government. But for me to delve into it and not have the security...
That it, okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Engels. The intention of this debate is to have a discussion with Mr. Engels, and if it's okay with the MPs, we will see Mr. Engels. If they ask their question, would like to respond right away, or wait until the MP has posed all their questions to you for you to respond.
For me, I prefer one question at a time. That's why I brought a notebook in case I get multiple questions to write them down, because I might have to think on one answer and then forget the following question.
Okay, understood. So the MP that takes the floor will, if they have multiple questions, will allow Mr. Engel to respond to each question before you continue. I see MP LaCruz, sorry. MP York, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, colleagues, and good afternoon, Mr. Engel. Thank you for your enlightening presentation, and I look forward to going through the report that MP Westcott just referenced. I do have a couple questions, hoping that to get a bit more understanding of the idea, the concept. One of the, I think, the underlying or the main things people look at with such concepts are the costs, right? And I know there hasn't been an extensive study into that as yet, but do you have an idea or a ballpark figure of what something like this would cost?
Well, it's practically, sorry.
That's okay, Mr. Engels, you have the floor.
Through you again.
Press the button. There you go.
Mr. President. No, it's pretty much impossible to even have a ballpark figure, because first of all, you need to know what all material is required in order for you to establish it. So what kind of steel are we going to use? How much steel, because we have to anchor it, what type of platform, and once you establish all what is required to establish the farm, and I'm talking basically just the frame, not the request per farmer, because you need to sit down with that farmer also to see what kind of equipment they would need for their type of farming, for you to come at a cost. But when you don't have the cost, you look at other questions to decide whether it's a project that is worth pursuing or not. And with this project, we go, what are the benefits of pursuing this project? First and foremost, to a certain small step, but it provides some kind of self-reliance, of economic independence for the country and its people. That in itself already is an initiative to look deeper at this. And then obviously cost effective, once you find out is it viable, then only you will pursue it. But in order to find out if a ballpark figure, you need to have, for example, how much pipe do I need, how much body am I going to use of water, and that's only the pipe, not other material and labor. That all needs to be established, and that is not something that I would do, but it's something that would be done through analyst.
Thank you, Mr. Go ahead.
If it's okay with Mr. Chairman, I have two questions to follow up on that. Fully understandable. As it pertains to grazing and non-grazing animals being in cages, is something like that also taken up in the report for third parties, that, like a Nature Foundation, for example, that would have questions based on that? Has that been thought on as yet, or is that something that also needs to be further researched?
Mr. Engel, you may respond to
Thank you, Mr.
MP York.
President. The question is on farming of animals that require grazing or not grazing?
Yeah, so you have grazing animals and non-grazing animals. So basically those animals that need sometimes space to walk around, graze, basically.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah, so the question is, which of those animals are part of this concept of farming? And in the event of having non-grazing animals, is a plan for that thought on as yet in the concept phase of this?
Well, in the concept phase of it, yes, there is actually not only that aspect. We're definitely working only with non-grazing animals, because it's less maintenance, for example, and less work for a farmer. Two, the other side of it, we have animals, for example, the chicken and the rabbits. The benefit of it extends because we can now go to the supermarkets and ask the supermarkets to have their vegetable waste sold cheap, donated if it's something that they have to throw away anyway, and they have the cost of throwing it away. We would then, at free cost, pick it up and give it to our animals, and they have partly free feeding, right? And then noise pollution is also something which was not part of your question, but also was considered, and that is why what type of animals do you want? And that is why I suggested chickens for broiling, because in itself, if you have a large volume, you will get some noise, but chickens are limited mostly to when I'm hungry, I make noise. Yeah? And then rabbits are 0% noise. You have no noise from rabbits. The thing is that they are both in a very short term ready for market, very low cost in maintenance, very low cost in medication, a high production of quality meat. And that is why I suggest non-grazable animals, in particular broilers and not egg layers that take longer, and rabbits.
Last question, Mr. Chairman. Hurricane season. Let's say the whole concept is fully running and everything is full, and then we have hurricane season, and then there's a hurricane on the way. What are the steps to be taken as it pertains to the floating farm? How does that look like?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, Mr. Chairman, again. As I mentioned in one of the drawing of the frames, okay, like I said, I could not, because it's an Excel, I cannot make diagonal drawings, lines. But these are the ones that will anchor mainly. Besides, it is already anchored straight down into the ground. You have additional anchorage on the side of them. So that will help with the anchorage against hurricane. No, yeah. It's part and partial. So that is the first part of protection against hurricane. And then you have, because it's metal cages, it has flaps for where you have the air circulation, that in case of a hurricane, it's a matter of unlashing the flaps and letting them down and latching them there. All animals stay in-house. There is no moving of animals whatsoever, no moving of fed crops whatsoever. Everything stays in-house. And that is why, again, the cost, you cannot just have an estimate on it, because you need to have all these things considered and find the actual cost of these. What we know is whatever the cost is, we have funding available, so it's not something that, hey, it's an investment that we have to recoup. We have that. And also, fact is that once you have your own production, it will be cheaper than importation. As government being the owner of it, we're not looking on a short-term return on investment, rather than a long-term production of availability of products of first necessity.
MP York, have you asked your questions? Okay, our next MP will be MP LaCruz. MP LaCruz, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A blessed afternoon to the SG, Mr. Engel, for your presentation, and the other members of Parliament here. A blessed afternoon. I'm a little cautious when it comes to anything that has to do with the salt pond. The salt pond is not only, it is seen by a lot as part of our heritage. So anything that has to do with that, touches and rubs people in a negative way. By coincidence, on Saturday, I'm sitting down with a group of about 20 people discussing heritage and our museum, and I floated an idea concerning a master plan for Phillipsburg with some more buildings. And I only spoke of buildings over the parking lot by the salt pond. And my head was almost chewed off. So imagine talking about in the salt pond. So that is already something that I think, we will have to really, really sit down and watch and discuss. And then the project itself, it's an idea. My question is the idea that our farmers take over a project like that, or is it a company that will come and execute that project? That is a question that I have. Then, because in my time in TIAT, we traveled to the Dominican Republic, and in talks with the other farmers here on the island, the idea was to maybe even reach a point where we purchase a badge, where the badge would go between the Dominican Republic, St. Martin, Anguilla, Saba, Statia, St. Kitts, and create a line. So if our farmers here, for example, right now on the French side, they're doing leafy greens, so lettuce, that all lettuce would be bought, and what is not sold here would then go on the badge and sold on the other islands, where we would have a rotating system of what and who grows what, so you don't deplete the soil by growing the same produce every time. And that was directly in conversation with the farmers that would hear. So that is why I asked the question, if your plan would be a plan that they will have to execute, or is it a plan of a company would come in and do that? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Engels, you have the floor.
Thank you for the question, MP. It will not be an issue, as far as I see it, for anyone with the love of the salt pond, because if anything will happen with the salt pond is that it will get cleaner. It will not be filled up. It will just have poles anchored into it, floating above the water, so the body of water remains. There is no filling of that. Rather, we're putting crustaceans in the water to clean up that body of water. So I think the people will more appreciate that fact, because that addition to the farming aspect, that we also are cleaning the body of water. And it will be fully exposed. Not a drop of sand will go in the lagoon because of this project. That is one, as you commented on that, was not your question, but you commented on that. Your question is whether it will be company-based or individual-based. If it was a company, then I would own it. I would go to the minister and ask for a license. It cannot, for the country to develop, it cannot be in private hands. It must be in the hands of government. And then government facilitates the farm structure according to the need of the farmer, local farmer, not neighboring, local farmer. We have a handful of them, and we have others that, I'm not saying that you're born here. I'm saying living here and want to develop, you will have that opportunity. depending on how much space we have. First thing we want to consider is we're not doing a gazillion type of products. We're doing gazillion pounds of one or two products, depending on what we can do. And then it's a collaborative. So if for example, we are only doing chicken broilers, right? And we have 10 farmers. Each one have their own individual land. Why don't you have a collaborative between the farmers and they run that chicken business? They pay government a rent. That rent, now government has money to boost their agriculture department, right? Whether it's for the department itself or for works that the department needs to do, the department now has an income, a reliable income. Only local farmers will operate it because, like I explained already, it cannot be in the hand of private citizens or a business person. It must be, it's farming, so it must be for farmers only. And the business community now, in particular the supermarkets and smaller grocery stores, they now have to stop importing, for example, that one or two product from overseas, but they have full capacity. If they need X amount of kilos, it will be provided to them. If St. Martin cannot meet that maximum capacity, whatever is over the maximum capacity that St. Martin produces, can be permitted to import. But if we now import from Santo Domingo, for example, and have a barge, we have to consider quality control, we have to consider packaging, we have to consider the life expectancy of the fruit, and then pretty much it's left over that you're passing over to the other islands. It's going to cost because the ship has to stay here and wait for you to sell, and so on with the other islands. So the price is only going to increase as you pass on to the other islands. And then you have also that when it finishes passing by all the islands, it has to now sail back empty. It needs fuel. It's going to put that on top of that price as well. So it's not really cheap. From offset, it's going to cost you. You have to pay for the barge to bring it down and pay for the barge to go back. So we have to consider all these. And I think that is capital flight.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. MP La Cruz, do you have another question or that? Thank you, Mr. Engel, for answering MP La Cruz's questions. I see the next speaker on the list is MP Westcott Williams. MP Westcott Williams, you have the floor.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman. And I want to go back to my previous question, but maybe from a slightly different angle. And I think you know, Mr. Engel, that my late mother, for years, she raised chickens, broilers and growers, and I mean, the whole shebang, and eggs and the whole shebang. Stating that, if you just had a look at this project and everything was possible, I think it would be a great project. And so that's why I'm wondering, like, what are, like, if you were to advise government and government was to say, okay, we would want to give this some thought. Next to all that you are presenting, what do you think the government should do, would have to do, before, like, giving a green light for it? You know what I'm saying? Because, for example, given different proposals that have come up with respect to the Great Salt Pond, I remember one of the things standing out is that the silting of the bottom of the Great Salt Pond is a big issue. So would that, for example, be something that before the government can even say, yes, we want to start this project, they would have to, like, research that or have it researched? So what are some of the things, if the government was to say, okay, thank you for the project, Mr. Engel, we want to give it a try. However, what do you have to do before you reach the point of it's a go or no go? You have any ideas about that, including what would need to be done with and to the Great Salt Pond to make this project possible?
Well, Mr. Engels, you can now respond.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The business model mentions the structure design, so it tells you what is needed. But if I may continue, you have two persons that are very. We have to do a market research, right? So we have to see what products would work well. This is something that is very important for government to do. What products would work well in our environment? We have to consider that, yeah, we have salt, whether it's from the salt pond, whether it's from the Great Bay that it's coming over. We have dry weather. Do we have sufficient water? Do we have availability to water well, pretty much the utilities? Do we have those infrastructures that we can implement comfortably and have them put in use viably, so that when we say, okay, we're pumping water through the Rolandes Canal, that we make sure that the end of the pipe does not suck in sand as it sucks in water, so that it would not damage the machine. So these are things that we have to think about, but also can St. Martin use the salt pond for agriculture is something that, a question that needs to be answered. And do we have other options if we do not use the salt pond? Things like what the type of structure needs to be, those are all things that questions that
Still
you need to
be researched?
Yes,
Oh,
but
okay.
that's the same question again. How do I come to a ballpark figure? All these need to be researched, but the question is, if this is possible, would it be something that we would be interested in? So if all the logistics fall in place, hurricane-proof availability of production, for example, when we decide we're going into broilers, we need to guarantee that we constantly have availability of baby broilers so we can bring them up to market. These are things that we have to make sure, and that is just efficient management to keep that functioning good. But if we wonder if having our own broilers here versus importing broilers is a step forward for St. Martin, I think this is what government should ask as question. Is it interesting? Is it more viable to have our own once we can meet the criteria, so we can meet the expenses, so that end product provides a profit? Does it, for example, as Mr. MP York questioned, and MP La Cruz, is it for the people or is it for the private pocket? These are things that because government wants to build up the country and build it up by building up the potential of the people to develop. And this would provide that possibility. And that is only one part of farming, because in another presentation I can go into the farming of, like I mentioned earlier, of farming of fish. Depending on how much land we can create, we can farm red tilapia because it's a cheaper type of fish, but we can also farm red snapper and shrimp for the higher end and for the tourist economy. When doing that, we're going to clean the entire island. We're going to take the steel, the heavy steel, dump it in the ocean like they did with the Marion, dump it in the ocean, but anchor it against land in a U formation. Underwater, you're creating an ecology. Corals are going to grow against it, and that creates new sea life. Above water, because it's welded steel together, you're just like your fingers, you're going to have holes in them. This is perfect location where the birds can come to nest and rest. The seabirds now have a location where they can nest and rest. We have a U formation that is anchored, so it cannot move. And we dump all the rest, so all the cars that we have on the pond fill, we talk about complaints about the pond fill. We're going to clean that pond fill and make a lot of land available. Fill that hole up to the level of land, and on top of it, build the fishery. And now we have and it's cheap because it works on salt water, and we also have solar panels, so all of those reduce production cost. And then we have a good step towards agriculture in St. Martin and fishery. But it's really, we are really at a stage that government says, you know, does this sound interesting enough for us to pursue? Because to pursue means put good money on the table. And that is where I ask of Parliament to give it serious consideration. And if it's something that Parliament likes, maybe to present it to government for them to delve into.
Thank you, Mr. Engel, for that response. I look to the members of Parliament. We'll make sure MP Westcott Williams, were all your questions sufficiently answered? I look to the members of Parliament if there's any other members with any questions. I see none at this time. Mr. Engels, I had a few questions of my own, but they were answered. They were asked by the other members of Parliament. The main one was the cost. What would a project of this scale cost? Also, in terms of hurricane readiness, you know, how fast can it be hurricane safe, which you elaborated to with the shutters, etc.
To get to the cost is an investment that government has to make in order to have the research done. It's 2 individuals that require for that. And then with the 2 individuals and me, we put a business plan together. And that will be approximately 4 months or something like that. And then government can take a decision on that.
Understood. Thank you for that answer. If there are no other questions, I would like to give Mr. Engel, sorry, I see MP York would like the floor. MP York, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. In closing, I know, for example, if the government says, hey, we are interested in this, and funds will be made available to further research this, which studies would be the studies that Mr. Engel would either have researched or advised to be researched? That's the question I would like to ask.
If I
Thank you, Mr.
may.
Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Engel, you may respond.
Thank you, Mr. President. Marketing, for example, we have to do a summary on the demographic. We have to do the knowledge on the market growth, the research of, the research is done through meetings with the farmers, their survey and the participation, and the retailers as well. So they have to give their input on this as well. The marketing objectives, all of these are done by, how do you say, marketing analyst, no? Production plan, continuation, you also have structure. Let me go here a quick second. You have to have a project assessment report done. And this will then obviously, it takes a market analysis to do that. Sorry, certified business analyst to do that. So we need those 2 professionals together with me to create the business plan.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. MP York, another question?
Thank you. The reason I asked that, because I wanted to know, I was curious to know if heritage and an environmental impact study would be part of that list.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. Consultations will be held with the Nature Foundation. All interested bodies, all stakeholders will be consulted, will be involved in, because we need to guarantee that not only the sustainability of weather, we also need to, the impact that it will make on our environment, on our ecology, need to be. For example, I will tell you as a fact that if I put crustaceans in that salt pond, I will clear that water. How long it will take, it's the number of crustaceans that we put in there. but that fact will be established in a report. You know, and all these are reports that we need to get. And to get those reports, we need those two individuals.
Thank you, Ms. Engel. I look to the floor and I see there are no further questions by my fellow MPs. Mr. Engel, I'd like to give you this opportunity to give your closing remarks to the members of Parliament, if you have such.
Thank you, Mr. President. First and foremost, I thank you very much for this opportunity. It comes from my heart. I love St. Martin. It shows in my project. Sorry. I'm interested in seeing our country develop. It means that much to me. Together we can do it. I need you. I present something. I hope it is viable. I hope it resonates with you. And I'm sure that if we do, the island will benefit. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. Once again, thank you for your presentation. Your passion for this subject is clearly visible. I would like to thank Mr. Engel for his presence here today and for providing this necessary information. Thank you to the members of Parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this committee meeting. I thank you all for your participation, and I hereby close this meeting.